This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
The federal government has announced that its revenue for the first half of this year has increased to 9.1 trillion naira, which is more than the revenue recorded in the same period last year. These numbers represent half of the total sum proposed by the federal government in order to meet its proposed revenue in the 2024 budget. Now, at the same time, a report from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the federal government also recorded 1.5 trillion naira in value-added tax for the second quarter of this year. Joining us on the conversation this morning is the former chief economist at Zenith Bank PLC, Marcel Okeke. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the conversation.
Good morning. Thank you for having me around.
Our pleasure. What is your reaction to these figures out of the federal government?
That's good news. That's good news. I want to believe them. It's quite encouraging. And we can only tell them to keep it up. But the other side is that they're telling us what they want to tell us. Because while it is good that up to half of what is, mapped out to be realized, nobody is telling us how they are battling with the deficit, which is about the same amount in the about 28 trillion budget. So we are saved, the trouble of what they are going through, to make up the deficit, which is a serious issue. But meanwhile, kudos to the government. That's what I say.
Mr. Okeke, you're right. It's certainly encouraging to hear that they've met up to half of the target within the first 6 months. But there are questions. They say that this is because they've improved on revenue collection and the effective use of technology. And this means that it's not necessarily that we've improved revenue, it's just that we're better at collecting it. Is it a problem that we've not actually increased how much is coming through the coffers of the nation?
I agree with you perfectly. Maybe it's a collecting process, that's been improved upon, but don't also forget that the deterioration in the value of the naira, comes up with what is called money illusion, meaning that some kind of dollars that come from wherever, when you convert it into naira, you have a lot of money in your pocket. So that's why there was no breakdown as to how we arrived at that amount. And that is why I say, well, just looking at the figure, we say congratulations. But a lot of things, do go on behind the scene. And so let's just clap for them and encourage them to do more and to do better. We don't want to go and start probing what happened. Of course, we are not told, okay? But all of us will look up for, brighter future and let them continue, with that trend of getting more money. It is good for the economy. Thank you.
So the government actually did admit that there are challenges. Inflation is, of course, a clear and present challenge, especially when it comes to food prices. I wonder if with this particular numbers that we are seeing, there is a sense of, I guess, some sort of direction in how to improve what, as you have pointed out, is a dire situation where the dollar continues to do harm to the naira. Do you get the sense that with the admission of the problems that exist, we are starting to point in the right direction?
Well, I don't want to believe that, because these things are very different things. When you talk about some kind of efficiency in collecting money, you talk about the level of inflation, or talk about the level of hunger in the land, or talk about food inflation specifically and all that. All those are different issues. And, when you look at the fundamentals, they don't look, bright in any way, okay? Because when you talk about food inflation, for example, somebody was talking about agriculture and all that, facing the challenge of insecurity in the land. You get to a point you say you'll be sending police, sending army to accompany farmers to their farms and all that. So that will show you the level at which we are. And those are not likely to solve the issue of food supply. And so those problems are there, while collection of money, could be improved. And like I said, the volume of money being reported could be as a result of money illusion, because of the deterioration in the value of the naira. So whatever you get converted to naira, you have a lot of money in your pocket and so on and so forth. So, but whatever is the case, we want to believe that this outcome will be an encouragement to everybody, so that at least there's one thing for them to show, and then we believe they will begin to attend to others in the same manner. Thank you.
I do understand your concerns around the value of the naira. Very legitimate to ask that question. But we also have, this gives us a chance to look at the dollar-denominated bond which we issued. We had targeted $500 million, and we saw an oversubscription. Up to $800 million was realized. Do you see that having a bearing on the value of our currency between now and the end of the year? Is there a possibility that it will impact the figures by the time we're looking at the end of 2024?
For me, that dollar local bond and what is realized a double-edged sword, because it means we are starting to run a dual monetary economy, where you have the dollar being permitted as a legal tender, officially somehow, and then you have a naira which is legal tender. If you look at CBN Act 2007, the only legal tender is in naira. But with what the government has done now, it has kind of tacitly approved the dollar as also a legal tender. Okay, now you have raised this, and you have a superior currency operating alongside an inferior currency. The inferior currency is the naira, and so in the long run, it will end up killing the naira the more, because people will do everything to mobilize and they have the assets in dollar, which is now permitted within our system, meaning that people can buy a dollar from the black market and begin to invest in this approved option, So you have the assets now moved into dollars, okay? Yes, for now, they will use whatever they have realized to defend the value of the naira. And you could see, something that looks the naira strengthening going forward. You understand? Okay? But in the long run, human tendency, everybody will want to have his or her assets in dollars because it's permitted within our jurisdiction. And so what that will do is to work against the naira, and it will start crashing, more than ever before going forward. That's what I see. But we are now clapping that so much has been raised in dollar terms. You as a rational economic being, why will you not put your assets in dollars? Not that you have it within the system. That is what is there. Thank you.
All right. Part of the positives that were announced by the government is an increase in oil revenue, going up to 30% from 11% in the first half of last year. And perhaps I'm looking for the silver lining here. Does this give any hope for what we should expect going forward?
Well, why that could be flagged and celebrated, and also lose sight of the fact that the price of oil has gone at a point, below $70 per barrel, while in fact 2024 budget is based on about $78 per barrel. So you can see the gap, okay? So we just hope and pray that it goes up again, because that will add to our challenges, meaning that we are unable to meet the assumed, price of oil per barrel for the budget. And so that will be a problem. We have been also battling with production level, which is also assumed to be 1.78 barrels per day in the budget. And now we are doing around 1.3, 1.4 million barrels per day. So you can see that we are short of the budget, the projections and targets to do with what is being reported. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Okeke, before we leave the conversation, still on oil, right? Despite Brent crude taking a hit and going below $70 per barrel, we hear that Nigeria's blend is doing better. Beyond this, and I may be conflating issues here, but there's still the controversy around the NNPC and any sort of remittance to the federal government from the sales that it has made. And on top of this, we still have information, and I'm extending beyond the oil sector now. Information, for instance, when it comes to our trade surplus or our trade balance, is that we do have a surplus. We're seeing imports decrease. I'm not too certain I can say that we've seen exports fully increase, right? But these are some of the pluses that this administration has been counting on. And I wonder if we can really look at it and say that the economics is balancing out, that it does make sense.
You know what happens? Some of the economic policies, rather than improving the well-being and welfare of people, are making people worse off. Okay? So any policy that makes you worse off is a bad policy. That's human nature. So what we are talking about, for instance, now, is that people are being forced or being weakened, that they are no longer able to import what they used to import, or no longer able to consume what they used to consume, or no longer able to maintain the standard of living they used to maintain, because of the economic policies. Okay? So all that in totality will now be reflecting in reduction in import. You understand? Because if you now have to spend, billions or trillions of dollars, naira, for you to get dollar, for you to import certain items, you begin to adjust. And that adjustment will tell in your level of suffering and contraction in your state of well-being, and that is what we're reflecting in misery index, rise in misery index in the life of so many people, and so on and so forth. You understand? So some of us are not deceived by those figures, but we just believe that it could be getting better in the long run. We don't have a clear picture, the total picture, just like maybe National Bureau of Statistics that releasing those figures have, or Ministry of Finance, and other agencies. We don't have those figures yet, but we hope that in totality they work out, to the progress of the economy. Thank you.
Mr. Marcel, thank you very much for your time and your expertise on this conversation. Marcel Okeke is a former chief economist at Zenith Bank PLC, and he joined us this morning on Now Breakfast to speak on the federal government's announcement of an increase in its revenue for the first half of this year, which has hit 9.1 trillion naira.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.